myself again, but it's the only way.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Delighted to welcome my two friends, Malcolm and John. Good evening and Happy New Year, lads.
Happy New Year,
fellas.
Steve, and
Nice
to everybody
together.
who's joining us.
Yeah, great to see you guys, and an hour that I've been looking forward to because it's positivity, lads. It's positivity. The transfer window's open, and Malcolm, we're getting linked with every single player that's up for grabs. And I just think even if we don't get, many of these players in, we might get one or two. It's just great to be watching Sky News or reading the paper and actually seeing Newcastle genuinely linked with players, knowing that we can actually afford to bring them, we can pay their wages, but ultimately, we're in the market for players and we're looking, instead of waiting until the last day of the transfer window and saying we couldn't get it across the line. So it's more encouraging. There's an excitement building, Malcolm.
Sure, yeah, and quite rightly so. It is helped by the fact that Ashley was so mean in the transfer market that it's allowed Newcastle United, I think it's a record amount of £192 million to spend in this particular window. I doubt very much that they'll get anywhere near that, not even halfway. But it's a sizable amount, and of course that alerts all the other clubs that the money is sitting in the bank account of Newcastle United, and now they'll chase it for sure. They will chase it, and now I can imagine that staff at Newcastle are getting an awful lot of calls from other clubs, albeit I see very, very little interest from English clubs. It's English players, but so far that they've actually been playing abroad. And so, do you think, John, that the English clubs are going to sort of stick together and refuse to do business with Newcastle?
I think an awful lot of them would like to do that, Malcolm, because there is this hangover where, we had to know what place under Ashley and now we're upstarts, etc., etc. There's a lot of that. I mean, I'm just delighted, as you were saying at the start, Steve, the first and foremost, we're going out from day one and trying to get players. I was sick, even in a summer window that was a much longer than this one, of doing things at the death. And how often did we just fail, in the words of Steve Bruce, to get the deal over the line? Absolutely sickening. To get somebody of Trippier's quality so early in this transfer window and way before our first Premier League game of 2022, isn't that significant? We're normally struggling to get one for our last league game of the window. We've got one before the first. And this guy's quality. Let us remember that 7 months ago, only 7 months ago, this fella won La Liga with Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, he did.
In a country dominated by Real Madrid and Barcelona. So that was a massive achievement. Only 6 months ago, he played for England in the Euro finals. This isn't a has-been. This isn't a guy with 35 England caps, the last one of which was almost 4 years ago. This is a current superstar, and Simone has waxed lyrical about how much quality he is and how they've only let him go because if the fact that he wants to come home for personal reasons, for family reasons, etc., etc. And I find it very offensive, by the way, guys, that a couple of our greatest friends in the country, Gabby Abonglaha and Simon Jordan, who both adore us Geordies, have had the audacity to have a pop at Trippier and saying he's only coming for the money. Now, that's a cheap shot that's very easy to do when you're supposedly the richest club in the world. This guy has every right to ask the going rate for a La Liga winner and an England international with 35 caps. But he's not coming to Newcastle for the money. He's coming because his wife and kids have been in this country throughout his 2.5 years over there. Enough's enough. He's got to go back to family life. He wants to come back to this country. He therefore wants the Premier League, and he knows exactly how big the project is at Newcastle under the new owners, and he knows how big the club is with 52,000 sellout every week because, of course, he was brought up here at Burnley and at Spurs. So I think it's a huge insult, typically by guys that don't like our situation since Steve Bruce left, of course.
Right, and you did just slightly touch on it, John, but he must be looking at Newcastle United and think, wow, what's going to happen there over the next 2 or 3 years? I want to be a part of that. Well, but every player that transfers goes for money.
Well, of course he does. It's an insult, though, Malcolm.
It is. But it's a stupid insult, John.
It is.
It's actually stupid to say that because every player who transfers goes for money.
And if
looks to get an improved contract.
And if you've won those two things in the last few months, if you played for England in the European final and you've won La Liga, you've got a right to get the coin.
Absolutely.
You're not a has-been.
Yeah, and Simon Jordan, come on, he knows the game in terms of the administration and running of it. Good heavens above, chairman at Crystal Palace. And he comes out with a stupid statement like that. Has there ever been a player in front of him that he's wanted to sign who said, no, I'll come for nothing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the interesting thing which we touched on, and you were saying there, Malcolm, about, he loves the project, etc., etc. What I'm also hoping is that this rubs off on other players as we go about our business looking for centre-halves, left-backs, strikers. They will say, if Trippier's buying into this, we want to seriously look at this because it could be take-off time. And
absolutely.
Be encouraged to come. What I'm delighted about Trippier is he's not sort of trying to hedge his bets and say, well, I'll come in the summer when I know Newcastle are on the launch pad and taking off and safe. He's willing to come and battle now. If we can get players in with that attitude, and he is a player with a very good attitude and work ethic, by the way, very good. If we can get that sort of player to come with him, which is why I keep getting told we're looking at Martial, we're looking at Aubameyang. I don't want those. Those are fancy Dans. They won't have the guts for a fight that Trippier's got. They would be coming for the money. And they would not want to fight at the bottom of the league. I'm told Anthony Martial isn't interested in us. Well, I hope we aren't interested in him because he's not a sleeves rolled up guy that'll do the business. But I'm delighted with what we've done so far. Let's keep going because, one right back won't save us. He'll help enormously. But as we all know, guys, we need at least one centre-half, probably two. We need a striker and a left-back. And that's pretty well essential.
Yeah. There is just one thing that keeps crossing my mind, and I think he's seriously improved since he's been at Newcastle. What's going to happen with Manquillo?
Good question. That's a very good question because I think he's done well under difficult circumstances. He's never really been flavour of the month. But considering, Malcolm, that he can do a steady away job at right back and at left back.
Yes.
And everybody can't be fit for 38 games a season. I would hope he stays here and acts as cover, and he'll get his fair number of games in because of injuries, reshuffles, etc., etc. But if I could see players leaving the this window because of others coming in, I wouldn't put him top of my list to go out. And by the way, it would be a very long list, but he wouldn't be top.
What's your views on Longstaff, Mal? I mean, we've heard the rumours that Everton have put a bid in, but Newcastle have rejected it for Sean Longstaff. And Newcastle, of course, keen on the fullback at Everton, Digba.
Yeah. I really do feel that both Longstaffs are physically and mentally suffering from the awful time that they spent under Steve Bruce. You know, it was totally unfair on youngsters, and so it can be, even though with new ownership, new manager, new players coming in, it can be very difficult for players to seriously get back on track from having had such a bad time as a youngster, and often a move is the best solution. Just completely get away to new surroundings, new people, new ideas, and start afresh. And so it really does depend, I think, on the mentality of each of the players. I know them quite well. I know the Longstaff family. I'm president of North Shields Football Club. They've supported North Shields. I made a presentation to Sean when he was 12 years of age, and so they're a very down-to-earth family. They will look at all situations. They'll talk with their father, who's been a professional sportsman himself. So he is a great aid and help to them, and so they will come to the best answer. What that's going to be, I don't know. But sometimes, even when you're at the place that you love, that maybe it's time to move on. I don't know. It depends on how they feel and what they can make of the situation. Because I understand Matty Longstaff, he's returned, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
Now to the club, yeah. So good luck to the pair of them. They've got a lot of very hard work to do, and they've got a lot, if you don't mind me saying so, they've got a lot of past crap that's been chucked at them as youngsters from the previous regime to overcome. And sometimes that's not dreadfully easy.
Yeah, and what's your thoughts on the Longstaff situation, John? I mean, do you think there's legs in that? Do you think that Newcastle would consider selling them? I mean, it seems as if they're not keen on parting with them. But I mean, the big thing with Longstaff, Sean Longstaff in particular, is the contract's up at the end of the season and he could go for nothing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why they would consider him letting him go at this stage. And Benitez, who gave him a good break when he was here and is aware of that, is interested. Using him, which has been suggested as a make weight or lever in the deal for the Everton left back. The only trouble with that is the Everton left back turns everybody down that he doesn't fancy. I think he thinks he should be signing for Manchester City or Real Madrid or whoever. And I'm told he's not keen on Newcastle. He obviously would only become keen if that's so on something like January the 29th. And do we want to wait that long? I mean, the situation with both the Longstaffs is whether that Newcastle taking a risk or not. Both their contracts are up at the end of this season. We're now in January. If you're going to get any money at all, and that's really going to be for Sean more than for Matty, then you've got to do something this window. I think that if Newcastle thought that throwing Longstaff into some deal that would get them a player like the Everton left back, they would do it. If he stays, I'm talking about Sean here, if he stays, smashing. But we will lose him for nothing in the summer. So it's a tricky one. I think the club would sacrifice him if they could get the right deal through this January.
Okay. Yeah, lots of comments coming in. We'll try to get a few of them throughout the show. I'm putting them on the screen, lads, so you'll probably see them. If there's anything comes up, as usual, give us a shout. I'm interested in your views on a player that's at your other former club, Mal, Arsenal, Aubameyang, being linked with Newcastle. Of course, can't get into the Arsenal team. Arteta putting them on the naughty step. He's now at the African Cup of Nations, but has found himself hit with COVID, so is now going to miss the opening few days of preparation out there. So Aubameyang to Newcastle, has that got legs? Do you think as a loan deal, perhaps?
I don't think Arsenal are interested in that. I think they want him out. Arteta has made that quite clear that whatever misdemeanor Aubameyang got up to, I think it would appear to me that it's been a really serious breach of club discipline, and I think that's it. It's over and done with for him at Arsenal, and that Arteta wants him gone. I think he's a bit of a luxury in a side, particularly when it's a side that needs battlers. And he's not the player for Newcastle right now. Certainly isn't. I think that they've got to look for a different type of player to Aubameyang. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's not the type for a relegation scrap.
John, I mean, in the words of the late great Joe Harvey, he would cause a fight in an empty room by the sounds of it. Is the fact that he's at the African nations as well, I think would be a bit of a negative as well for Newcastle if they were contemplating a move for him, because they need people to feature in this game against Watford, really.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Steve. Everything I see about Aubameyang, it tells me I don't want him. And I know the ability the lad's got. But sometimes, ability isn't an asset. It becomes a liability because the player knows he has that ability and thinks he can just, do anything he likes and showboat and not break sweat because I've got class. And, he'll turn it on every 6 games. First and foremost, this guy, what happened to him, he went away because his mother was ill, given compassionate leave, and he came back late. Not only did he come back late, but he didn't tell the club, and he just took one phone call asking if he could stay an extra day, or he just come back late. And he regularly comes back late, and he regularly is late for everything, including training. His disciplinary record, and bear in mind, at Arsenal, he was skipper, the guy that's supposed to be setting the examples. His disciplinary record is awful. When the going's not, and by the way, it was in Germany, before, I remember the stories before Arsenal took him, you're taking a bad boy. Yes, he can finish, etc., etc. His body language recently at Arsenal has told me he's not interested. I was down at the Emirates for the Arsenal game because I was staying with my daughter and I was actually in the stadium. And the miss he had against us, it was easier to hit the target. And he missed an open goal simply because he wasn't switched on and aggressive in the penalty area. He was just strolling about. He has not got the stomach for a relegation fight. And also, the African Cup of Nations goes on till February the 9th. Do we want to wait for the replacement for Wilson for February the 9th? We need a replacement for Wilson before Watford. So forget him for me. He isn't for Newcastle in the way that Trippier is. Aubameyang isn't, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay. Lots of other names getting thrown us in the chat. So I'll come to you again, Malcolm. Coutinho, there's going to be news on him tomorrow. It's been narrowed down to 2 English clubs. The press haven't announced who they are, but there's going to be a decision made sooner rather than later. Aston Villa seem to be in the driving seat, of course, with Gerrard being his former teammate and being manager now at Villa Park. But have Villa got the same amount of money as we have? And money talks.
Yes, it does. But I think Villa they've got money to spend. They can compete. And it would be a big pull for Coutinho to be managed by his old teammate, who I would imagine that he had huge respect for, who didn't have respect for Gerrard and all that he did at Liverpool and for England. And I could see Coutinho wanting to sort of just set up that sort of good relationship, that partnership almost again. And but nevertheless, and also, of course, Aston Villa, they're sort of they were appearing to be on the up. They've had a little bit of a dodgy spell of late, but nevertheless, they're in a much more positive situation than Newcastle find themselves. That league position of Newcastle is going to put a lot of people off. It really is, and that's why I've got such huge admiration for Trippier, because he's the first to make the decision. He's been very positive, and it's almost as if he set his sights on Newcastle to come to, and I think it needs to find the club needs to find other players who are of that persuasion, that of that leaning, that they say, yeah, we can go there, we can get a job done. Trippier's the first. I'm happy to be the second, and so on and so forth.
One of my feelings.
I tell you, I would love Coutinho in the side. I think he's one hell of a player. I have my doubts if he would come and take on.
He's called the magician, of course, John. Coutinho.
Yeah, he is, and he is a quality player. We saw that at Liverpool. I think his leaning would definitely be towards Gerrard, because he needs his next move to be spot on. It's got to be successful, because since he left Liverpool, he's gone off the rails. He needs his career to come back on track. So he's going to eliminate any problems that might come along, and playing for Gerrard, he would see as excellent. May I also say this? I would welcome into Newcastle any quality player whatsoever, but I don't believe that Coutinho is the position we need as a priority, because we aren't going to buy a full new team. And we need centre-halves before we need somebody in Coutinho's position. We need an out-and-out striker that plays inside the penalty area and finishes more than we need Coutinho. He can score goals. Bobby Charlton could score goals, but we need a line leader. We need a line leader to replace Wilson, not just for now because Wilson's injured, but sadly because Callum is regularly injured. He will never play 38 Premier League games a season. We have got to seriously look at not making him our number one and having a backup striker, but buying a number one striker and having Callum Wilson as our backup. Because this guy is, we've been waiting for him to get injured, haven't we? With fear, because we rate him and we think he's terrific, but he gets injured. We need an out-and-out striker more than we need a Coutinho. We need a centre-half more than we need a Coutinho. It could be argued we need a left-back more than we need a Coutinho. Yes, I would take him, because what a player. And that's wonderful. And that might be something for the summer. But I don't think it's necessarily something for January, when we're not going to get all we wish for, because we would need an awful lot. So I would want to see centre-halves in and a striker before an attacking creative midfielder. Wonderful though he is.
One thing's for certain, I think Saudis will want to make an impression. I think they'll want to make an announcement. I think they'll want a marquee signing, and I'll be very surprised if we don't get one. Origi from Liverpool has been mentioned in the chat tonight, and Northumberland Geordie says Ben Brayton Diaz will be a good shout if Gale was offered as a part of the deal, Malcolm. I mean, Brayton Diaz has really hit the ground running in the Championship. He's broken Alan Shearer's record with scoring 20 goals quicker than Al did back in the day at Blackburn. Origi, of course, we remember him, of course, for scoring that winning goal, breaking our hearts at St James's Park when Liverpool just failed to win the title that year, and when Rafa was manager at Newcastle. So, you know, again, he's a big lump. He's more of an impact player at Liverpool these days. But, you know, would either of those two players float your boat as a potential forward to get us out of relegation trouble?
Why not both? You know, the club can afford it, and we have been so short on strikers, and I don't see why that if they were to go for the both of them, one falls through, the other one succeeds, fine. You know, Diaz, John, I think I sort of look back at my record going from Luton to Newcastle. It can be done, and Diaz, I think, is looking at him. I think he has got every chance of doing something very similar. So it wouldn't worry me about bringing in Diaz from the Championship. I think he just slot in.
That's a very good point, Malcolm, because it's the move you did. He has fascinated me for a long time, because he's the kid that suddenly realised he qualified for Chile, if you remember, because of a relation in his background, whether it's mum's side or dad's side. He qualified, and he's been a sensation there, and he's scoring goals. Now, I know there will be a feeling in his side, well, theoretically, Newcastle could go down and Blackburn could be promoted. So he could be in the Premier League with Blackburn and Newcastle could be in the Championship. But Blackburn is never going to be Newcastle United. I mean, even way back when they won the Championship, Alan Shearer realised that and came to Newcastle.
Sure.
Not just because he was a Geordie, he would have gone to Manchester United. He wasn't going to stay at Blackburn. But he is fascinating. This Origi has done a terrific job at Liverpool. With their front three and Jota coming to join them, there's not many chances at Liverpool to be regular. So, you know, that is what he's faced. And there's the kid also been mentioned, Steve. You know, the kid at Arsenal that comes in on the League Cup and the FA Cup and keeps scoring all the goals he scored. Another 2, another 3 against Sunderland in the League Cup. Another bright kid who's far too good just to be hanging about. They should get Aubameyang out and promote this guy quick.
Yeah, they should.
But
that's what I think they'll do, John.
Yes, absolutely. So those sort of guys would appeal to me. It's going to be a hard signing a centre forward because, as Malcolm knows and everybody in football knows, that's the toughest signing to make, because they are the blue chip players. They are the RAF boys, aren't they? They're the guys that command the big money because of the goal scorers. So who would get up top is going to be very, very interesting. Interesting as well that we've been linked with that Solanke, who was the Liverpool lad, like Origi, remember? And then and Howe bought him and took him down to Bournemouth. And he struggled. He struggled big time. And when they were looking at Howe's record in the transfer market, he was put in the minus column with all the people that were put in the plus column. But of course, this season, he's come great in the Championship, and he's scored a pile of goals and at the top of the Championship and coming up. So I think Bournemouth would resist that one. But please, God, we've got to sign a centre forward, because there is a suspicion Wilson's going to be out longer than we initially thought. And as far as I'm concerned, guys, and I know how harsh this is, whether he's going to be out for a few weeks or a few months, that situation has to be addressed on every front, first and foremost, because wonderful striker though he is, and we want him to lead our line every game. He's not going to do that because he has got injury problems. And once you have regular injury problems, that stays with you. So he's not going to do that for us.
It does.
And also, Malcolm, just to finish, mate, also, who else in our team scores regularly? Who else would ever make double figures? If we looked, we could say Sam Maximan doesn't score often enough. Aubameyang doesn't score often enough. The wingers don't score often enough. The midfielders don't score often enough since Willock stopped this season. And so we haven't got anybody that's a consistent goal scorer outside of him, who's always going to sit out of the team for long periods. So that is a problem that must be addressed.
Yeah, major problem. Yes, yeah. And Wilson, he's suffering. He suffers in two ways. One is that he is somewhat injury prone, and so he will regularly go out of games, miss games with the injury. But when you're constantly out, you never get fit properly again. And so he's not able to fully give anywhere near 100% in a game. He gives everything he can, but it's not the 100% of old that he would have given. And so there's always got to be, sadly, a question mark when somebody is in that physical condition with that physical record. And so Newcastle maybe should have to think beyond Wilson, get their forward line sorted out. When Wilson is fit again, then it's a good competition to see who they choose.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we can't rely on Wilson in any way. And it's sad to say, but who knows? At some point, he might just suddenly stay fit, and the injury proneness cease. But it's very unlikely indeed. And bless him, I feel sorry for him. I've seen a number of terrific players suffer in that way, and boy, is it frustrating for them. It really is, and my heart goes out to them.
Big shout out to our sponsor, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They are the boys to trust. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the internet search on Google. Well worth checking them out. Big shout out as well to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245, and to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Arcot Interiors for all your kitchen needs. Google Arcot Interiors, they come up at the top of the search list as well. You can find them on Heaton Road in Newcastle. Thanks also to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle. And of course, the man who runs our website, John, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks also to Jab Signature for making our flyers. You can find the guys at jabsignature.co.uk. And if you're a first-time visitor to the channel, then click Newcastle Legends and you can subscribe. It's a little badge in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. 250 away from hitting 46,000 subscribers now. So big uptake over the last Christmas period. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video. Got over 540 watching at the moment. 100 of you have done that. Please hit the thumb up. It does do us a big favor and it's free to do. Click the share button to share to your other social media and drop into the comments section to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to post a question. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcast providers. And if you want to make a donation to the food bank, then do so at the NUFC Fans Foodbank.co.uk website, where there's a virtual bucket where you can put money in all year round. And don't forget, the food bank will be at St James's Park for the FA Cup game this coming Saturday. You can make a donation to people up there. And come and see me and Malcolm. Me and Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot. It is free entry and it is child friendly. And Malcolm and I will be there from 1 o'clock to give a pre-match talk in and around about 6:15 to do a post-match talk in. So get yourself into the Dog and Parrot, very friendly bar. And as I say, kids are welcome. They do food as well. So everything under one roof, the Dog and Parrot, Saturday for the FA Cup match. Okay, let's get back to the chat. And look, we'll keep going with the names, lads. It's just exciting to be talking about them. Aaron Ramsey, Malcolm, is another one which is getting mentioned. And Ross Barkley, two players we've been linked with in the past by the media. Is that the kind of player you'd like to see? I mean, Ramsey could come on a free. We know his wages are going to be easily met by the current owners now. But is that somebody that would interest you, Aaron Ramsey?
Aaron Ramsey, yes, but I'm not a Ross Barkley lover, I'm afraid. He leaves me scratching my head too many times, but Ramsey, yeah, I think it would be a good move for him, certainly. Albeit, I'm really not sure that it's going to happen. I just have my doubts. It's almost as if, if they were going to move, they would have got stuck into it early because of his availability, and so I have my doubts as to whether Newcastle have actually got an interest in him. I think it's more being pushed out publicly by his people than anywhere else.
Okay, John, what's your take on those two players, Barkley and Ramsey?
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it, that we've just been talking at great length about Callum Wilson, because for me, Ramsey falls into that situation. A fit and fully firing Callum Wilson can be a centre forward all day long. A fit and fully firing Aaron Ramsey would be in a Champions League side. The whole point is he's available because he isn't fully fit and regularly firing. It's the same with the other fella that's in the Welsh side alongside him, Gareth Bale. Where they've been, the height they've been at, the ability unsurpassed. But will he stay fit every game? No, he won't. And if he would, by the way, he would still be at Arsenal, or he would still be playing in Italy at the highest level. He is not quite able to do it. He will have glorious days. There's absolutely no question about that. He will have glorious days, but so will Callum Wilson. But how often because of injuries? He does worry me if we signed him. I would think if he come to Newcastle, we would be gambling on a marquee signing. We would, the owners being the Royal We, would be looking at this and saying this is a marquee name. I'll tell you what, if I can go into the past, and there's always a comparison, and I know because I was around at the time, the reason Freddie Shepherd and Newcastle United signed Michael Owen is because what he'd done as Liverpool as a kid and in the World Cup against Argentina as an 18-year-old, and we're getting him from Real Madrid. Only we weren't getting the real Michael Owen, we were getting the current Michael Owen, and that was a totally different animal. And he came to Newcastle, and he didn't have a great attitude from my point of view as well. And that turned out to be a disaster. And, you've got to be careful that you're not buying the name, you're buying the person standing in front of you, because the name's wonderful. You can't get a greater name to play centre forward than Malcolm McDonald. But I'm not certain that this January he should be signing for Newcastle United. That's the difference. You've got the greatest centre forward sitting in the middle of us two, except that now he's only a few years off my age, so we'll not bother. We'll just remember him for the wonderful player he was. And I want to remember Ramsey or Gareth Bale or everybody else for what they were. Don't Newcastle jump in too quick and sign a player for what he was as opposed to what he is now. And that is always the worry for me. And funny enough, Barkley in another way is coming from the same situation. He clubs are still signing him, whether it's Chelsea, whether it was Aston Villa on loan. They're still signing the wonder kid from Everton that went in the England side, aren't they? And then discovering he's not that anymore. Not because of injury, he just isn't that anymore. So you've got to be careful that you're signing today's model and not yesterday's model.
Right, John, just a question. Would it be my two artificial knees that are holding me back, would you say?
No, because I think your two artificial knees have put about 6 inches on your height. So all those balls have flow over your head. You'd be belting them in the back of the net now. So I think that could be a plus, mate. That could be a plus.
Classic, lads, absolute classic. Yeah, loads of names getting mentioned, and it's, as I say, it's just great to see, that so many players are being linked, and where we can get into this transfer window malarkey now. John says, great show as always, gents. Supermac, what's your feeling about Vlahovic as a number 9? He would be great, especially with Wilson's injury issues.
Dear me. I don't really know, to be honest. I'd have to have a really good look at him.
That's the worry, Malcolm, isn't it? When you just see somebody fleeting, if you just see somebody fleeting, you don't know enough about them to say he's the answer.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was like when videos came out, and so agents started taking clips of one of their players, all the best clips, sticking them on a video and sending them out to clubs saying, would you be interested in this player? They didn't put the crap bits in. And so, yeah, I'd have to go and look for some while at that player.
What you just said there, Malcolm, just for a bit of fun as a side thing, what you just said there about people putting clips together. I remember when I owned Gateshead, I got a video of an old Newcastle United player. I won't mention him by name because that would be unfair, but I got a clip of an old Newcastle United player and said, this fella could be available. We were in the conference. This fella could be available for you. He can do it. What do you fancy him? And I got this clip and I looked at the clips and he was going down the wing. He was beating 3 people. And then when it come to the centre, I never saw the centre. Because obviously it flew over the top of the crossbar, it went out on the other side of the field. So I saw these wonderful dribbles. But then when the pass came, I never saw where the pass went because they cut the video off at that point. That was his good bit. Now we're not going to show you his terrible bit. And that is one of the great reasons why you should never, and there's been fabulous situations we've talked about at big time level where people have bought people on the strength of videos, and that's frightening because that doesn't work. A lot of the time, I want to see the rubbish bits to see how rubbish they are before you go any further. But yeah, I mean, there's so many, as we've said, guys, there's so many names being thrown at us. And in fairness, all these agents are doing all this, and they're doing it all with Newcastle United as well. They're going on to them and saying, my boy would love to come and play for you. Do you fancy doing a deal and getting him? And it's such a quicksand. Newcastle change their targets tonight, whatever they are, their targets for 2 centre-halves, a left-back and a striker tonight. I can guarantee by Monday their targets will be somewhat different because somebody will have said they won't come, or somebody will be costing too much money, or they'll be wanting too big a wage, and they'll then go on to plan B or plan C, or another fella will be offered to us. So you can guarantee that Amanda this evening will be sitting with a list as long as my left arm, but by Monday night, the list will be my right arm because it will have changed until you get people past the post like we've just done with Trippier. It changes almost by the hour, never mind the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a good question for you, Malcolm. Would you come to the tune in our current state? Says Team 9. If you were
right. Yeah, I was at Luton Town, and I've been told by manager Alex Stock that there were 3 clubs that that were interested in me: Chelsea, Man United, and Newcastle United. Now, for Chelsea weren't exactly favourites, considering I was a Fulham supporter as a lad. So, it was like a Newcastle fan going and signing for Sunderland. I know one or two have done in the past, but an awful lot haven't. Man United, they were in a very, very similar situation to what Newcastle United are now when they were looking to sign me, and I could only see dark times ahead for them. And I think that was true in the early 70s. They really did suffer. I think they got relegated in about 1973, 72, 73, was it, John? Can you remember? When Man United got relegated.
Yes, they did. Yes, the beginning. Yes, the beginning.
Yeah, and so in 71, I just didn't. I needed to keep going that way and not go reverse. So, looking at Newcastle as they are now, would I have signed for them? With the takeover, and of course, that kind of a takeover never happened back in the 70s. But I'll shoot myself forward to this current day. And I think that what Newcastle are offering is going to be one of the most exciting decades of football that any professional footballer could have. I think it's going to be quite phenomenal. It needs, right now, 11 guys to roll their sleeves up, take no nonsense, get out there and absolutely kick butt in doing everything that they possibly can to stick the ball in the net, win matches, nothing else. Just keep putting points on the board. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be clever. It just has to be effective. And in about 3 or 4 years, then things will really start to change even further for the better.
Bit of breaking news as we're on air. I'm just keeping an eye on Sky Sports. Newcastle are after Todd Cantwell from Norwich. He's not getting a game, but it's just been confirmed on Sky. The Cantwell is another one that Newcastle are looking at. Norwich have obviously got an option to extend his contract, but he's not getting a game under Dean Smith. Obviously an exciting young midfield player. Malcolm, you look disappointed.
Not disappointed. I'm not so sure that. I'm not so sure about this ad. Right now, what Newcastle need are out and out battlers. They've got to be able to play. Those up front have got to be able to score goals, but it needs people to roll their sleeves up and battle. Cantwell, I'm sure he would do that, but I'm not sure that because of his age. I think he's a really good player, but I don't know whether he would really be up for that kind of a battle. That he would have to be putting in 90 minutes every single game. No, I'm not so sure on that one.
It's an interesting one, John Cantwell. He's young. I've quite liked him at Norwich. He's not playing in a particularly good side. It's a side that struggles every time they come up. They don't have the money that other Premier League clubs do, John. And he's got a bit about him, that kid. And again, it just depends. It's like a jigsaw. If you get a jigsaw and you get 2 jigsaws and you end up mixing them up, then the pieces don't go together. But if you can get a team that blends on and off the pitch, young, exciting players, mixed with a little bit of experience, mixed with a little bit of home lads who can take you down the big market and show you the sights on a night time. it's finding that mix, John, and that could be an interesting one. I'm more excited when I hear names like that sometimes than I am Coutinho. I've got to be honest.
I can follow exactly what you're saying there, Steve, and I think a lot of fans will think like you think. My first reactions are several things. First of all, if he can't dominate the Norwich situation, who's the only team that must be way worse than our original side before we're jollying it up this January, then he ain't going to save Newcastle from relegation. I also think he is not the position. I keep banging on about this, but what if we only end up with 3 signings, 3 more? That's 4 signings in January. That's pretty good. We've kept talking about midfielders, or we've kept talking about Coutinho and Ramsey and Cantwell. And I mean, does that mean we don't bother getting more centre halves? We don't bother getting more left back. We don't bother getting more striker or even 2 strikers. I want to look at the midfield as a last resort, because the midfield guy, Coutinho, is not going to stop 42 goals going in at the back. Neither is Ramsey and neither is Cantwell. And by Jove, we better do something about that, or we are in the claggy. You know, I don't know its priority. What I would say to you, Steve, is that if you're looking in the summer, when you've got more time and we're safe and we're built, then we can look at situations. I tell you what this is. This is dire straits, this January. This is dire straits. We stay up or we don't by what we do in January. We don't sign potential. We don't sign lovely players because they're lovely players in positions that aren't absolutely critical. How often are we mentioning centre halves here?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got to bear in mind it's only the 5th of January, well, the 6th of January, lads, and already we've been linked with some quality players, and it's about getting them across the line.
I'm not worried about being linked with them, Steve. I'm worried about signing them.
But you don't know what's going on in the background, John. That's what I'm saying. We've been linked with a lot of players. The good news is we're being linked with players. You know, we're not sitting back waiting like we have done for 14 years going, well, is there anything going to happen? We're desperate. How many years have we been desperate for centre halves, John? How many years have we been desperate for a forward? I would say probably at least 10 of the last 14 years we've been saying exactly the same thing. We've just gone along with the skeleton staff on and off the pitch. So I genuinely think this transfer window will be good. And Kieran Trippier, getting him with that shirt on, getting the publicity shots, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, whenever we see him, that's going to send a big sign out, like Malcolm said before. And I think we'll have a good window. And I would just have that bit of patience. I think we'll get our centre halves. I think we'll get our full backs.
I agree. I agree totally. I'm not beginning to panic. But rather than us talking about, as we have, several midfielders, I would rather, and I'm certain that the owners are not talking about several midfielders, I want to see centre halves come in or a striker come in before. Let's get round. If we want to sign a quality midfielder on January the 29th, that's great. If we've got 2 centre halves and a centre forward and maybe a left back, it is wonderful what's happening in the transfer market. It is wonderful the optimism we have. We can enjoy a transfer window because we can speculate. We can go down the pub with our mates and talk like we are talking now all night and think it's a genuine possibility, which it never was under Ashley. I just hope that when we get to February the 1st, we've got 2 centre halves, or at least 1, and 1 striker, possibly 2 and a left back. Anything on top of that will be magnificent, but we do need those positions. And we're not dealing with fools here. The people that's got the ears of the owner, the professional people, including Eddie Howe, etc., will be saying exactly that. And I've got great faith in this window. And why? Because, as I said at the top of the programme, we get into the first week of January and we're signing an England right back who's just won La Liga. We couldn't do that in the last week of January under the old regime for 14 years. So it is a terrific start. It's given us great hope, and we can knock on from this. And we want to do it now, Steve, as we've all been talking, because the actual winnable games are coming up now. Our next two in the Premier League are
Next
Watford
three.
at home and Leeds away.
Next
We
three are
want-
winnable. Next three are winnable if you get players in, because you've got Everton after that.
Correct. Absolutely, mate. We want players in, if possible, for those games, because that's where we're going to get with 3 points, isn't it, guys? On those games. That's not at the end of the season when I think we'll go, I don't know, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Burnley on the last day. You know, we want it all done and dusted before then. So I'm optimistic. I'm chuffed to death, but I have got a priority list, not of names, of positions.
Okay, lads, just before we finish, FA Cup this weekend. Mal, it's something that you've enjoyed running the Cup. Is it something that, we're going to do this year? We've got Cambridge at home. It looks winnable. I think you'll give a run out to a few players who aren't getting a regular game in this one. But, give us a quick prediction as well, Mal, please.
Well, in the situation that Newcastle find themselves in, what a great boost in the Premier League for Newcastle to have a really good cup run. Building confidence with a cup run, you take that confidence into the Premier League matches, and you're better, you're stronger, and so never mind testing players out, giving them a chance and what have you. Win the games. Win. Week after week after week. And take it from starting this Saturday in the FA Cup against Cambridge United. Look to win the game. Nothing else. So pick a side to do that. It's not a time to test players out, to give them a chance. Got to play a side that we know can beat Cambridge United, and then the following week can go on and beat Watford, and then so on and so forth. And we've got to go for it. So the FA Cup, it can be a really good tool to lift the confidence, to get a few goals in the back of the net and take that into the next game.
Okay, John, same for you. Cup run would be nice. I think winning is important. I think we need a decent win, and it sets you up nicely for Watford.
Yeah, without a shadow, without going as far as a cup run yet, because we don't know what we're going to get. Victory on Saturday is absolutely imperative, because we're playing a League One side. It can give us only our second win after 20 games we've played now, if you include the League Cup, and we've had one win. And this would set us up nicely for the fixtures that are coming. The match, I'm told, it's got to be on. We've been off recently with COVID, but the Premier League have sent out a memo to all their clubs yesterday saying that as far as the FA is concerned, FA Cup ties must go ahead even if you play all your apprentices. You know how you can put off your games in the Premier League if you have X number of COVID plus injuries and you haven't got enough senior under 23s. That's not so with the FA Cup. You've got to play even if you put out your junior side. So you will find that FA Cup matches that the Premier League clubs are involved in, and that's us, will go ahead. So I believe this game will go ahead. We ought to be able to beat Cambridge regardless of the side we put out with the senior players we've got. For example, Dwight Gale, for just using an example, hasn't got games under his belt this season at all. But if he can score goals in the Championship, he'll score goals against League One opposition, by the way. So he will score goals against Cambridge. Anderson, a kid who I'm very much involved with because it's Jeff Allen's grandson, he could be a world beater in a game like this. I think we've got to go in and we've got to beat this side because it will give us such a lift for what is to come. for the important things. And I believe we'll do this. I think the game will be on. I don't know what side Eddie Howe will put on, but I'll tell you one thing. Anybody that plays in a Newcastle United side that loses at home to Cambridge ought to be given a free transfer, because they shouldn't be able to call themselves Premier League players. They ought to be able to beat Cambridge, and I think we will beat Cambridge. 3-0 for me. Bring on Watford. Just introduce Trippier to the crowd with a big wave on the pitch on Saturday, and then unleash him against Watford when he's trained a full week with the first team. Onward and upward. Keep the faith. 3-0.
And a prediction from you, Mal?
I'm going to go 4-0.
Great stuff, lads.
Yeah, after that last performance, Man United, I saw so many good things. And if Cambridge United have been looking at that on video, they won't be looking forward to it one iota.
Lads, God bless you. I'll see you next week. Take care.
Indeed. Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Nice to see you. Keep the faith.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.